There's a season for everything, and a time for every matter under the heavens. A time for giving birth, and a time for dying. A time for planting, and a time for uprooting what was planted. A time for killing, and a time for healing. A time for tearing down, and a time for building up. A time for crying, and a time for laughing. A time for mourning, and a time for dancing. A time for throwing stones, and a time for gathering stones. A time for embracing, and a time for avoiding embraces. A time for searching, and a time for losing. A time for keeping, and a time for throwing away. A time for tearing, and a time for repairing. A time for keeping silent, and a time for speaking. A time for loving, and a time for hating. A time for war, and a time for peace. Be happy in your hope. Stand your ground when you're in trouble, and devote yourselves to prayer.